Hello, hello. I'm AstrologerCoach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming solar eclipse that will happen at 10 degrees of Libra on October 2nd at 2:49 p.m. New York time, and that is 7:49 p.m. London time. Now, 48 hours before and after an eclipse, we are experiencing heavy energetic downloads. So it is best to wait to set solar eclipse intentions until these intense downloads are complete. So setting intention is a little bit different than for a regular new moon. So I will talk more about setting intentions for a solar eclipse towards the end of this video. So stay tuned for that. And also feel free to use the timestamps in the description part of the video, since this is a bit of a longer video due to the eclipse factor. You might want to jump to parts of the video or watch it in shorter sequences. All right, now let's talk about the eclipse. Now, solar eclipses are extra powerful new moons that take place approximately every 6 months. And this is the second solar eclipse in 2024. This particular eclipse cycle will be in effect until March of 2025. Usually eclipse cycles last for 6 months from one eclipse to the next. So that's different from a regular new moon, which that new moon cycle usually lasts only for 28 days. So the difference is now 5.5 months or 6 months instead of 28 days. And the first solar eclipse of 2024 took place in Aries on April 8th. So think back to early April and see what seeds got planted in your life concerning the last solar eclipse. So if you set any intentions around that time, check to see, did you set any intentions on April 10th, 11th, or 12th, which would be 48 hours after the eclipse took place? And did something end or begin around that time for you? And also ask yourself, what have you discovered about your physical vitality and your self-identity since the last eclipse? So these last 5.5 months. Actually, I should say since the last 6 months, almost 6 months. So this is an annular solar eclipse. And this occurs when the moon passes between the sun and the earth, while the moon is at its farthest point from the earth. Because of the distance from the earth, it appears smaller than the sun, even though it's in front of the sun. So this means that it doesn't completely cover the sun. And as a result, the moon appears sort of like a dark disk on top of a larger bright disk. And that's what we would be seeing if we're in a place on the planet where we can see the eclipse. And so that sort of creates sort of like a ring of light around the moon. Now, the solar eclipse will be visible from the Pacific Ocean, starting in Hawaii and then going all the way down towards South America, parts of South America, and then the South Atlantic Ocean as well, and Antarctica. So not a lot of places where we can go. Most of it will be visible from the ocean. So unless you have a huge boat and you want to go on the middle of the ocean, that's when you can see the exact eclipse. But no matter where you are on the planet, the effects of the eclipse will be transformative globally for all of us, energetically speaking. Now, we also addressed eclipse season and the solar eclipse in Libra in more detail in our webinar Eclipses, Our Soul's Journey Continues. And if you missed this fantastic online event, then click on the link below this video to get this fabulous 111 minutes webinar. 111, triple ones. That's how long the webinar was. And yeah, feel free to watch that. And if you were already registered for the webinar, you just check your email. You should have access to it. Now, the sun and moon are connected to one of the moon nodes during an eclipse. And that's what creates that alignment between the sun, the moon, and the earth. And eclipses usually alternate between North Node and South Node eclipses. And they emphasize our evolutionary upgrades that are available to us during the time of an eclipse. So this is the second South Node solar eclipse in Libra since the moon nodes have moved into ARIES-LIBRA, into that polarity in July of 2023. So the last one was a year ago in October of 2023. And solar eclipses often correspond to significant endings and beginnings, like I mentioned already a little bit earlier. And because the moon nodes journey through the sky, it takes them about 19 years to travel all the way around to get to the same place where they were 19 years previously. And so the last time we had a solar eclipse in this particular polarity and also in this particular degree and sign, while the South Node was traveling through Libra, was October 3rd, 2005. So we will likely experience a resonance between that time and now. But you have to remember, it's going to be a resonance. It's not going to be a repetition of what happened in 2005. So think back to autumn of 2005 and ask yourself, were there any significant endings or beginnings at that time in your life? If you can remember 19 years ago what happened around that time, and what was important to you at that time as well. What were your priorities, especially in connection with relationships? And if you were to take those priorities to the next level, where would that level find you? So in other words, how can you connect to that now on a whole new level? Now, there's a couple of things that we need to talk about in this solar eclipse chart. The new moon is not only aligned with the South Node, but also with Mercury in Libra, Mercury, the planet of communication. And it also makes a square to Mars in Cancer. Mars is the masculine energy. And Mars also is the focal point of a T-square. And the new moon also makes a semi-sextile to its own ruler, Venus. And so we'll talk about all of that, of course. And then Venus makes a bunch of aspects as well in this solar eclipse chart. Venus will be in Scorpio at the time, and it will be part of a grand water trine with Saturn in Pisces and Mars in Cancer. So these are all water signs, and they usually support each other. The same element has an affinity with each other, so there's a support there. And then we also have Jupiter in Gemini and Pluto in Capricorn, who are very potent at the time of the eclipse because they're both exalted, because they are stationing, they're slowing down. And they both make exact sextiles to other celestial bodies in the sky. Pluto will make a sextile to Neptune in Pisces, and Jupiter will make an exact sextile to Chiron in Aries. So sextiles are 60-degree aspects that create an opportunity that requires our attention and action. So we need to take advantage of an opportune energy in order to reap the rewards of that combination. If we don't do anything, then it will just pass us by. Now, again, we'll talk about all of that in more detail in a moment. First, let's talk a little bit more about eclipses so you can understand a little bit what that energy is all about. During a solar eclipse, the moon momentarily interrupts the normal flow of solar radiation. And that's why we experience kind of like a reorganization of our own consciousness to a much higher level, because the sun is our consciousness. Now, solar eclipses indicate the beginning of a new experience, a new project, or a new cycle. So pay attention to what's coming into your life at the time of the eclipse. And this particular eclipse season started September 2nd, as I already mentioned with the last new moon video, because that was when it started with the last new moon in Virgo. And it will end after the super full moon in Aries that follows this solar eclipse. So in other words, by October 24th, 2024, eclipse season will be over. Now, as best as you can, during eclipse season, don't jump the gun for the next 4 weeks. You will feel compelled to do something. You will feel this urge to take action, possibly. Do your best to just observe that urge. The exception would be if something is happening organically without you really pushing anything. But if you are at all ambivalent about an action, if you're not sure if you should take it or not, just hold off until eclipse season ends on October 24th. Now, eclipses are time for clarification and affirming our highest path. And we will experience a release and a recalibration because old programs will get deleted and new ones will get downloaded. So it's really an upgrade for us, sort of like upgrading the software of a computer. And as the upgrade is happening, we need to be patient. We cannot do anything on the computer while it's upgrading itself. We have to wait until that upgrade is done, download it. And that's the same thing with eclipses. Now, this eclipse will connect to our one-on-one relationships because it's in Libra. There will be a connection to our ancestral patterns that no longer serve us, and whatever helps us to take a balanced approach in life. Now, since this eclipse aligns with the South Node in Libra, it asks us to release any wanting approval, any codependencies with others. Codependence occurs when we give up our own preferences or needs to appease someone or to avoid conflict. So if you have any planets in Libra, that probably sounds familiar anyways. If you have important personal planets in Libra, if you have your South Node in Libra as well, then that definitely sounds familiar. So this is just something that we're working on if we have a lot of Libra planets. The exception might be maybe an ascendant in Libra, but if you have personal planets like the Sun, Moon, Venus, Mercury, Mars, South Node, these are all signs that you might want to work with that a little bit. So ask yourself, where am I afraid of confrontation and with whom? And what's the worst thing that could happen if I spoke my truth? Because often there might be a little bit of a fear, right? A fear of rejection or a fear of, not being able to handle what the other person comes back with, how they're responding to us. So there might be some kind of fear there. Now, we're also invited to release or redefine a compulsive need for approval and connection. Our relationships begin with the relationship that we have with ourselves. So everything out there that we see, any relationship that we're experiencing out there in the world, is a reflection of the relationship that you have with yourself. And this is really important to be conscious about and to know, because that's how you can then start to create better relationships in your life if you start to have a better relationship with yourself. Now, ideally, interacting with another person is a co-creative, equal exchange. Ideally, right? Ideally. And Libra, of course, is very much about the ideal. We always want to strive for the ideal with an air sign. And Libra is definitely an air sign. But we have to be centered within ourselves in order to tune into each other. And in order to really respond to the rhythm of life, to be able to have that co-creative equal exchange with life, with others. So because Libra is the 7th sign of the zodiac, it represents a significant turning point that invites us to investigate ourselves through the lens of other people, how we are relating on a one-on-one level with somebody else. And this could be any kind of one-on-one relationship, whether that's personal or business or people that we meet at the store or, at the doctor's office. It could be any one-on-one relationship. Now, anything we haven't mastered from the previous 6 signs that come before Libra, all of that's still left to deal with, we bring that stuff to our relationships. And so that's why sometimes relationships can be quite complicated and, not always easy to be around, because there might be something missing that we haven't done for ourselves yet. And that's why it shows up in our relationships. So what we have to realize is that any person that we attract into our own lives, they act as a mirror to show us where we still need to do the work. Now, Libra invites us to see all of our issues, to resolve them, and to have more of a harmonious relationship with ourselves and with other people. Now, what you can ask yourself is, what if harmony and peace were mine to create within me first? And this is something you can journal on, maybe, if that's your thing, if journaling is your thing, or you can maybe meditate with that question. Just remember, with the questions that I pose in my videos, you do not want to answer them with your conditioned mind. You want to allow there to be an intuitive process with these questions and just allow the answers to come to you. So using them while journaling or while meditating is a really great way of allowing that to happen. Now, before we delve into the various aspects of this solar eclipse chart, let's first discuss the role that Jupiter in Gemini and Pluto in Capricorn play in this chart. Like, as I said, they're both exalted, they're both stationing at the time of the new moon solar eclipse. And so this could cause some discomfort, or we might also feel some exhaustion, because Pluto can be quite intense. Jupiter can be quite exhilarating and about excitement. So we might feel exhausted or not comfortable with this exalted state of these two planets. Now, Jupiter begins its 4 months retrograde phase on October 9th. So soon after the solar eclipse becomes exact. And Jupiter will be exalted until October 23rd. So it basically will be moving more slowly until October 23rd. And its energy will be especially potent from October 6th until October 12th. That's when it's the most slow, and that's when we feel it the strongest. Now, an exalted Jupiter could bring an extra wanting to expand, extra excitement, extra enthusiasm, being overly confident, overly optimistic. And because Jupiter is in Gemini, this might become a little bit excessive in terms of like our thinking processes. We might feel more scattered brained, more mentally restless because of that. So ask yourself during that time, what do I think? What's going on with my mind? What do I believe about my own thoughts, about my own thinking process? And what do I really know? And also, where am I underestimating myself or underestimating other people in my life? Or where might I be overestimating myself or other people? It can go both ways. There could be just an extreme of that we're experiencing. Now, Pluto will be ending its 5 months retrograde phase that began on May 2nd at 2 degrees of Aquarius. And it's ending that retrograde phase on October 11th. And so Pluto will be exalted until October 27th. So almost around the same time as Jupiter, pretty exact same time. But the energies will be particularly potent from October 5th until October 17th. So that's when it's moving the slowest. And an exalted Pluto always brings extra intensity to the table, because Pluto is all about intensity, very black and white. It's about our power, our empowerment process. And Pluto urges us to build something solid, lasting, and emotionally empowering for ourselves and future generations right now, with it being in Capricorn again. And by the way, it's only going to be in Capricorn until November 19th. So we're definitely, this is like a heightened degree that it's in as well, not just stationing, but it's also in a heightened degree stationing. So we're really getting this urge of like, okay, I need to complete something here. I need to really get this done. So remember, Pluto is an emotional empowerment process. So if something is killing you slowly because it's inauthentic or toxic, we will definitely become aware of that during a Pluto station. Okay, so pay attention what's showing up. And with such an intense and exalted Pluto in Capricorn, we definitely, it will serve us to nurture our feeling body and to stay open to receiving support from familiar, trusted people as best as we can. So don't just get hyper-focused on what you need to do, but also allow there to be a support, allow there to be a nurturing. So ask yourself here with this station, how might a tight and sustained focus on my emotional well-being support me with my long-term goals and what I want to be creating out there in the world? Now, Jupiter and Pluto both make exact sextiles to other celestial bodies, like I mentioned already. Jupiter sextiles Chiron in Aries, Pluto sextiles Neptune in Pisces. These sextiles are opportunities that we have to grab. Feel free to read more about these sextiles in my Solar Eclipse in Libra article for more about these opportune aspects. And that article is available on my website on the blog page. Now, let's talk about some of the planetary aspects in this solar eclipse chart. Mercury aligns with the solar eclipse in Libra. which indicates that we are invited to look closer at our relationship with our mind and also our ability to communicate. So ask yourself, on a scale from 0 to 10, how would I rate my listening skills? And how could I make someone else feel heard? And how could I make someone else feel safe and supported? Now, we may experience a shift in how we think of our relationships at this time. And so it's a good idea to look at where we need to rectify anything that's unbalanced or that's unfair or that seems unfixable in our lives in connection with our one-on-one relationships or also the relationship that we have with ourselves. So ask yourself, what am I noticing about my one-on-one relationships? And what am I choosing to ignore? So again, these questions allow this to be an intuitive process. And then the South Node Solar Eclipse Mercury alignment in Libra, that's a mouthful, that squares Mars in Cancer. So this is a huge opportunity to release past patterns in connection with the masculine energy that we've been carrying around for decades. So masculine, of course, is anything that has to do with wanting to do something, wanting to go after something. It has to do with assertiveness. It has to do with aggression. It has to do with domination. It has to do with our life force as well. It has to do with passion. It has to do with being passionate about something. It has to do with our sexuality, Mars, that masculine energy. So, and everyone has masculinity inside of them, right? Everyone has masculine energies, no matter what gender you are. So we're getting a chance to really take a look at that right now and release some of patterns that maybe are no longer serving us. And this could also include things that span from generations, something that's been handed down to us from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next. So ask yourself, how can I take 5% more responsibility for my actions and reactions? And how might planned self-care help my healing journey around the masculine energy? And how might it help other people? Now, as I already mentioned, Mars is also the focal point of a T-square that involves Mercury and Chiron. So this T-square does put a lot of stress on Mars in Cancer, on that masculine energy. So we may feel impatient or cranky. Mars in Cancer can be a little bit cranky. We might maybe feel that we're doing more for others and that we're feeling resentful maybe about that. And we're being invited to be realistic about what we can do without depleting our own energy. And this is really important. If we can find a way to tune into ourselves enough so we understand when we're doing too much for other people and when we need to start to regenerate ourselves and be there for ourselves and pamper ourselves, that's the best way to deal with this. Take responsibility for how we're handling things. So this combo also emphasizes the importance of clear communication and how words can heal or harm because of that square to Mercury, which is the planet of communication. So pay attention to how you communicate. Are you being impatient when you communicate? Does that resentment come out when you communicate? Have you been doing too much? And therefore, in your communication, you're starting to get a little snippy with people. So just observe these things within you and just remember you are the one who can make a difference there and you are the one who can change these things. Now, as best as you can, have productive discussions that serve you and others. Look for win-win solutions and know that aggression or impatience won't solve anything. So ask yourself, how might practicing self-care help me have productive conversations? That's a really, really great question. So really see if you can really sit with that question for a while. And how could I make sure that I feel safe with others? And how about feeling nourished? And how might I get to a place where I can experience all of those things, where I can feel safe, where I can feel nourished, where I can feel like I can have productive conversations. So how can I get to that place? Now remember, healing can only occur if we are willing to embrace our own sensitivities and love our own most vulnerable places. If we can't do that, then it's very difficult to heal. Now the solution point for the T-square is in Capricorn. You know, with a T-square, you always have the opposite of the focal point becomes the solution for how we can deal with this stress that we're experiencing. And that is inviting us to take actions that benefit us and our loved ones in the long term, and to bring an emotional maturity and nurturing approach to the world and everything we do out there in the world. So ask yourself, could I work towards something that supports my emotional well-being over the long term? And how might a realistic approach to self-care or emotional self-alignment serve me at this time? And, you know, if we look at what does self-alignment or emotional self-alignment mean, if we just investigate that a little bit, you could say that emotional self-alignment is something that if something resonates with you, if you enjoy something or you feel a connection, you feel a pull towards something, then that means that that something is in alignment with your own energy. So you want to move towards the things that resonate and away from what doesn't resonate. So if you're feeling a repulsion, or if you're feeling a feeling of like, ooh, this is kind of not for me, you want to move away from that. And it doesn't mean that the thing that you're not resonating with is bad or is wrong. It just means that it's not in alignment with your own energy. And this is another thing that's really helpful to recognize, because when we become honest with our own self-alignment, we really don't need to judge what is not in alignment. We just need to focus on what is in alignment. Now, we will also address the upcoming Mars transits. There are plentiful coming up this autumn, including the Mars retrograde phase that's starting at the end of the year, in our next forecasting forum on October 16th at 5 p.m. New York time. And the webinar is called Mars, Trouble or Action. What are you after? Are you taking the right actions in your life? So if you are at all curious about all of that in relationship to your own birth chart, if you want to explore that a little bit, then feel free to join us live on October 16th, or sign up for the MP4 video presentation if you're not available on that day or time. And you can register below this video. In the description part, there will be a link that will get you straight to the monthly forecasting forum page on my website. Now, to be automatically registered every month for all of my forecasting forums, because I do forums every month, you can become a star member on my website at astrologercoach.com, and then you're just automatically registered. And also, there will be an early bird special available until October 14th at midnight, New York time. And universal members get a 10% discount at any time, whether there's an early bird special or not, towards my forum. So this is all available. So if you want to take a look at my memberships, feel free to do so. Now, let's talk about Venus, which is the ruler of Libra. So this planet is really important in the solar eclipse chart. And her placement in this chart shows us where we get a chance to redefine or release any South Node issues that are connected to that Libra energy. So let's look at the aspects that involve Venus. The eclipse planets in Libra make a semi-sextile to Venus in Scorpio. And a semi-sextile is a 30-degree aspect, meaning that they're neighboring signs, right? Libra and Scorpio right next to each other. But they consist of very different desires and agendas. In the case of Libra, the desire would be peace and balance and harmony, while Scorpio seeks depth, intimate connections, and emotional authenticity. So it's very much about our feelings. Scorpio is very emotionally motivated, and Libra is more intellectually motivated. It's more about the ideal of something. So it might be difficult to reconcile the differences between these two signs because they're so different from each other. So we want to be really aware of that. And as best as you can, work on bringing more love and beauty and truth into your life, and pay attention to your motivations. Scorpio is very much about our motivations. Are we coming from love or are we coming from fear? Right? That's really the question with this Venus placement. And then ask yourself, what turns me on? Not just sexually, but also emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Scorpio is very much about tuning into what feels passionate for ourselves. Where do we feel this energy, the tuning up of like, this is great, this is amazing. This feels really good. This feels in alignment with me. And also ask yourself, which relationships and interactions in my life feel most empowering and life-affirming? And then, of course, in contrast to that, you might also find or ask yourself, which relationships and interactions in my life feel disempowering or not life-affirming in my life? And that might be important to notice as well. Now, Venus in Scorpio is also part of a grand water trine with Saturn in Pisces and Mars in Cancer. So this grand water trine shows us our ability to allow feelings to move through responsibly and support us in bringing more love and acceptance to anything that we've experienced in the past that's been disempowering, or any traumas that we've experienced in the past. So basically, this grand trine gives us the ability to take responsibility for our own energy body. And also, it invites us to notice when we need rest, to let go, and to nurture ourselves when needed. And because it's a trine, because it's in a harmonious aspect, there is much more support to actually be able to do all that, to do the resting, to do the letting go, to be able to nurture ourselves, or to receive support from other people so that we can do that in our lives. Now, it also helps us to release any unhealthy attachments to the past, making it easier to trust and therefore to allow ourselves to stretch outside of our comfort zones and to invite in something new, something that's different, something that serves us, that empowers us, that energizes us. So ask yourself, could I slow down just for a moment and take in what is truly happening inside and around me? And could I trust that everyone is exactly where they need to be, including myself? And could I be 5% more gentle with myself, especially concerning past traumas or fears? When it comes to traumas and fears from the past, where we want to protect ourselves or where we want to push something away, where we're resisting something, it's so important to notice that, to acknowledge that, to be gentle and kind to ourselves around these issues. Because nobody else is going to do it for us if we don't do it ourselves. Now, we also might be able to receive new support from other people. So what you can ask yourself is, what if I let myself receive 5% more kindness from others? Not because I need it, but just because it is available to me. Because there are actually people out there who want to give kindness to me. Now, the trine that Venus is making to Saturn, that asks us to look within and do our own spiritual work. And so you can ask yourself here, what would it look like to know myself more deeply and to realize my place in the universe? Because, there's we're all one, right? And how do I realize my place that connects me to everything? Now, the trine that Venus is making to Mars, that gives us a feeling of flow around intimate connection with other people and healing past issues. Going deeper and connecting from the heart comes much more easily with that connection. So ask yourself, if I knew I could now more comfortably address something from the past, what would I address? This could be in connection with relationships, it could be in connection with family, could be in connection with our upbringing, could be in connection to any trauma that happened in the past, something that you've experienced in the past, If you knew that you could address this more comfortably, what would you be addressing? And are there any relationships I want to investigate right now? Something that I just want to, a relationship I want to reconnect with, something that got disconnected in the past, or a relationship that I want to separate myself from or distance myself from because it's no longer serving me or helping me. It's no longer healthy for me. So are there any relationships I want to investigate? So to summarize for this powerful new moon solar eclipse, it really invites us to redefine long-standing relationship issues or alliances with other people or other partnerships that we have. And so ask yourself, which interactions would benefit from my showing 5% more courage, or from being 5% more direct about what I need or who I am or what's going on with me? And do I focus too much on what other people want or not enough? So remember, relationships are a real growth opportunity that provide a mirror for us to see aspects of ourselves that are still underdeveloped or unconscious. So we want to really take advantage of this growth opportunity that we have with other people. So really thank everyone that you come in contact with, every single person that you have a one-on-one relationship with, whether it's good or bad or ugly. Thank them for coming into your life so that you can grow, so that you can know yourself better. So it's really, these relationships, any relationship really helps us to heal old wounds and recover essential parts of ourselves. So ask yourself, what roles do rest and recreation play in my ability to connect with other people or to achieve my highest potential in terms of being completely myself and who I need to be in this world? So for the next 5.5 months until the next solar eclipse, do your best to be authentically yourself with others and move towards an empowered future for yourself and others. Again, flexibility and open-mindedness will help for the next 4 weeks while we're still in eclipse season. Embracing our humanity and practicing self-compassion, especially around our inner processes and limitations, that provides an opportunity for really great healing. So practice that as much as you can. And whatever we experience, especially during eclipse season, life is always here to support us. So trust that process. So the more an eclipse activates our own birth chart, the more we feel the need to really move to that next level of our own personal evolution. And because eclipses are so powerful, I usually use a bigger orb than for the regular full moon or new moon. And so I use a 5-degree orb instead of a 2-degree orb. And since the solar eclipse takes place in 10 degrees of Libra, you want to take a look at whether you have an ascendant or any personal planets in 5 to 15 degrees of Libra, Aries, Cancer, or Capricorn. And if you do, then you may feel the effects of this powerful new moon more strongly. And this is also true for those of us who have an ascendant or sun sign in Leo or Cancer, because the sun rules Leo and the moon rules Cancer. Now let's talk about setting solar eclipse intentions. Setting intentions for a solar eclipse is a little different from the regular monthly new moon process because we're setting them for the next 5.5 months for the whole eclipse cycle until the next solar eclipse, rather than just for the next 28 days. So solar eclipse intentions, of course, like I mentioned already, are best done 48 hours after the eclipse becomes exact, because we're downloading these new templates at the time of the eclipse, and the energies are so intense that we really don't want to be setting any intentions within the 48 hours before or after. So we want to wait until all that settles down a little bit so that we can set our intentions. And we also always, of course, don't set intentions during a moon void. Of course, that doesn't serve. And so the best and most potent time to set intentions with this particular solar eclipse will be between 2:45 p.m. on October 4th and 2:45 p.m. on October 6th. And that's New York time, US Eastern Daylight Savings Time. And because there's no moon void, of course, phases during the most potent time to set intentions with this solar eclipse, we have an exact 48 hours to set intentions. There's no interruptions, so just go for it. And again, if you set the intentions, to just set them in with the intention of what you want to up level in your life for the next 5.5 months. And if possible, align that with the Libra energy and also with the Venus in Scorpio energy. And if you live in a time zone other than New York time or US East Coast time, and converting time zones isn't your thing, then feel free to join me on my Facebook fan page or follow me on Instagram or Twitter. I post reminders when it's time to set our intentions, and then you can just, when you see those reminders pop up, just sit down and write your intentions. And if you've never set solar eclipse intentions before, feel free to read my article on the subject. And that's available on my website, and there will be a link below this video in the description part. And then my members will see me in 2 weeks around the time of the super full moon in Aries. And we will look at what we have discovered since setting our solar eclipse intentions, if anything has shifted energetically speaking since then. And then everyone else will see me in about 4 weeks from now for the next new moon. And please, during these next 4 weeks until eclipse season is over, take good care of yourself, stay healthy, focus on your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, and do your best to keep raising your own frequencies and get plenty of rest. You know, eclipse season often requires that we receive more rest than what we normally would need. So have a good one. I'm astrologer coach Sonja Francis. Okay, bye-bye.